Since January, Ripple has been in a game of war with the SEC. And finally, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. To most people's surprise, if the case continues this way, Ripple might come out of this lawsuit victorious or even on top of the game. Welcome to Moneyside. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get this money together. Back to today's topic, April 6th, Ripple's big day. You should mark this date on your calendar because there's a telephone conference about secret files between the judge, the SEC, and Ripple. And here we will show you why Ripple has a higher chance of winning this court case and why XRP is still one of the greatest assets to have today. So let's get started. Why April 6th is such a big day for Ripple. At the start of their tug-of-war with the SEC, Ripple announced that the SEC was quite biased. In their opinion, the SEC was somewhat dictating the winners and the loser in the crypto world. How? The regulatory body announced that only Bitcoin and Ethereum are the commodities in the cryptocurrency space, thereby proclaiming them winners. More importantly, the SEC has denied public knowledge of how they came up with the idea that these two crypto giants are commodities. In their motion, Ripple's lawyers argued that the request for these private documents was triggered by the regulators' refusal to provide this information to the public. To be more specific, the lawyers alleged that the SEC had failed to give the documents concerning Ether and Bitcoin. The regulator will finally be revealing this information on April 6th. Who knows what will happen? My guess is, like I said earlier, those documents might contain some information about foul play. And if so, the winning team in this lawsuit will be Ripple. That will also affect the price of XRP positively. Furthermore, Ripple lawyers claim that the SEC know more than what they are telling the public about Ether and Bitcoin. There's a high chance that the regulatory body has a vested interest in Bitcoin and Ether, yet the SEC was formed to protect all cryptos. Is Ripple engaging with regulators? As much as cryptocurrency creates an anonymous space where you are free to do whatever you like, we now have regulators that you will have to communicate with. The current predicament that Ripple has with the SEC is not because the company doesn't comply with regulatory laws. On the contrary, according to David Schwartz, Ripple's CTO, the company has constantly communicated with the SEC. He continues to say that the biggest obstacle to adoption in the cryptocurrency space is engaging with the regulators. Therefore, it's either you engage with regulators or the court. If that doesn't happen, you might end up engaging with law enforcement when a crime occurs. David says that certain regulatory threats are not from break laws, but from uncertainty about how such rules apply. Gary's understanding of XRP and Ripple. Gary Gensler, who's a professor at MIT, commented XRP. He is also the new chairman of the SEC, and Gary must understand what Ripple and XRP are all about. That said, in a meeting at MIT, Gary says his understanding of what XRP and Ripple are trying to do. Mr. Gensler goes on to say that XRP works as the bridge currency between fiat and cryptocurrency. According to Gary, he says that Ripple is trying to make XRP a bridge currency. He doesn't refer to XRP as security, but only as a token, which is crucial information in his statements. This meeting that will be held over the phone will talk about two crucial factors in the case. One of them is Ether and Bitcoin's status and how relevant that information will be to Ripple's court case. There's some form of misconduct, but we are all waiting to see what happens when the SEC presents these private docs. Another vital topic that will be discussed during this meeting is the confidential documents on Ripple. These documents are said to have information on Ripple that can be used in the case. The form might help Ripple's case, or there's a possibility it might not contain any useful information. However, we are hopeful since this sounds like the most effective defense that Ripple has against the SEC. If you're an active trader of this crypto, you should probably find ways to access this telephone conference. What next after April 6th for Ripple? This telephone conference's idea is that Ripple might get something to use against the SEC in those documents. There will be a number that the public can use to listen to the discovery conference. The number will be circulated to the concerned parties just a few hours before the meeting begins. Unfortunately, if this conference doesn't amount to any foul play, Ripple might have their work cut out. Those documents are a large part of their defense against the accusations the SEC has. And more importantly, those documents could help boost the crypto's adoption should there be any evidence they can use to defend themselves. Aside from that, Ripple's defense team might have to go back to the drawing board and mount another defense strategy. But we are all hopeful that this crypto giant might have the last laugh in this lawsuit. However, even though there's a ray of hope in the court case, XRP's price continues to take a hit. That's all thanks to the lawsuit against Ripple. The coin's price dropped significantly this year, which was unexpected since it had a strong third position in the crypto world behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. But the coin isn't going down lightly. XRP is still putting up a strong fight against all odds, and Ripple is finding ways to support the currency. Let's take a look at the technical analysis to have a clear picture of what is happening to XRP. If we look at the daily perspective, a strong risk-averse environment due to an escalation in disputes between the SEC and Ripple Labs could see XRP USD surpassing the 82 cents high of November 2020, with uncertainty and positive market headlines pushing the token towards 0.5968 level. If it successfully climbs above the 0.67 barrier, more upside should be seen, with resistance at 0.77 and 0.82. November 2020 high levels will be in sight. The key psychological pivot level in XRP prices will continue to be around the 50-cent level, and potential buyers will likely wait for a confirmed move higher before being tempted into building long positions above this level. For as long as it stays below the 0.55 level, the low range seen since December 2020 between 0.16 low and 0.77 February 2021 can continue. We now see the 4 hours time frame. The technical picture for XRP USD continues to hint that momentum is rising in the near term, with downside risks fading. Notably, the token continues to be bought, even at lows, hinting that it is likely to be more resilient in the near term. With risk sentiment generally positive, the prices moved directly higher, rising 5% to 0.59 in 24 hours. If selling interest returns, initial floors could form from the nearby support band of the moving average, MA50, at 0.555, and near-term horizontal support level at 0.550 formed back in March 2021. However, breaching this barrier may bolster downward pressures. The XRP USD pair is only bullish while trading above the 0.55 level. If the XRP USD pair trades below the 0.55 level, sellers may test the 0.50 and 0.44 levels. Please keep in mind, we are not a licensed financial advisor. All videos on this channel are intended for entertainment purposes only. Tell us what you think in the comment section below and let's have a conversation. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and to click on the subscribe button below. Turn on notifications to get informed whenever we post our amazing content. We'll see you in the next video.